This is James Walker. Welcome to Real Talk, Real People. This is the podcast that turns the mic over to everyday people to hear what they have to say about the issues and problems we face as a society. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. 45,000 people here in Connecticut, African American, carry the sickle cell trait, but it is not front page news. My guest today is James Rawlins. He is the president of the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, Connecticut, and he is here to update us on what is going on with funding, education, and programs to help these people who are carrying this trait and those who are being treated for it. It's been about 2 years since we last had him on the show. And at that time, I had him on the show because my nephew Isaiah had just passed away from sickle cell. And I was trying to get a little bit more information because I didn't know much about sickle cell. In fact, my family didn't know much about sickle cell at the time. We recently had my niece, Rebecca. She just went into the hospital because she has sickle cell and she is being treated. So, what is going on? We can't get big pharma involved because there aren't enough people, according to them, for them to invest in research and medications to help control and fight sickle cell. So Jim Rawlins is here to give us an update on where we stand here in Connecticut. Let's get him on the show and hear what he has to say.
My name is James Rawlings. I am the president and CEO of the SCDAA.CT. We have expanded ourselves now. I was going to say Southern Connecticut SC, but now that we are responsible for the entire state, it's SCDAA.CT.
I got
and
you.
So that's where we have advanced to relative to expanding and getting the trust of our clients.
Well, it's been about 2 years since you've been on the show talking about sickle cell and the importance of getting funding and meeting the challenges of this disease. At that
Yes.
time, I believe I'm not sure if Michelle's house was just opening or it had been open for a few months. So what's going on with Michelle's house, and bring us up to date on what's going on with sickle cell in Connecticut.
Well, we continue to have funding challenges. We don't have the state has given us the entire state grant, which is roughly about minimum of 5 figures. But we're responsible for every individual in Connecticut who has sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease. And of course, based on the last couple of years, there's still no cure for sickle cell disease. And so many, from my perspective, preventable and avoidable acute care visits are taking place. And since the Medicaid is the principal provider, there is really no gatekeeper, and there's nothing in place to drive down the avoidable and preventable hospitalizations. And we're fighting to make sure that there are other clinical options available, as opposed to the clients going to both the UConn's Clinical Treatment Center and the Yale New Haven Hospital Clinical Treatment Center. And by that I mean that they are considered to be under the NIH, the clinical treatment centers of choice, because they have oncologists and hematologists.
Okay, I was reading a report from the Centers for Disease Control, and this report came out last year, and what it stated was that many of the young people between the ages of, say, 5 and 13 are not getting the medication and the treatment that they need for sickle cell. And I know that you have said that big pharmaceutical companies won't provide the or won't do the research because there's just not enough people for them to make a profit. So what do we do? If big pharma won't help us, what do we do?
I am going to pivot. We are going to pivot from a dependence upon big pharma to prevention.
Okay.
And by that I mean, um, it's a genetic disease. It takes two. It takes a male and a female. There are about 45,000 individuals in Connecticut, black, that's just black, not the brown piece. There are about 45,000 individuals in Connecticut who are carrying the trait. So they are the drivers of the newborns who are positive.
Well, let me ask you a question, Jim, because this is puzzling to me. If are these parents or potential parents aware that they have this trait in their genetics? And if so, why would they choose to pass this on to their children?
The You have to understand that these are individuals who are impoverished, um, to some extent uneducated, because it's 70% of the individuals who, or 75% of the individuals who are on Medicaid.
Okay.
They have the priorities of those on Medicaid. We have individuals who are homeless. We have individuals who live in food deserts. The three bigger urban areas in Connecticut are up to 65% single-head households.
So how does that play into the disease and passing
It's
on
not a
the disease?
priority. It's something that's lost in the discussions.
Okay.
And in the journey for everyday journeys of individuals with this kind of baggage. And so on the one hand, many of the females will be aware of the sickle cell trait status because they having babies, but the males are not aware of it or deny the fact that they may be having sickle cell trait. And so, most of our virtual meetings, because we do virtual meetings every first Monday of every month, the engagement, if there's 20 individuals in the room, 18 are females.
So how would a man know that he carries the test? What do we have to do to find out if a man has sickle cell? Like you said, it takes two. So how do
Right.
we find that out if you have it?
There's
I
two
mean, do you?
programs.
Okay.
There's two programs going on. We have introduced into our house, Michelle's house, a sickle cell testing program. Okay. Second
Okay.
piece, that we have partnered with CVS to be able to have them provide sickle cell testing at many of the pharmacies in Connecticut,
That's a
particularly in
good thing.
the large urban centers.
So
Okay.
you have this set up. Now let's
Mm-hmm.
just say that I have the trait. I don't know
Right.
about it. How do
Right.
you get me into
Mm-hmm.
CVS or Michelle's house to take this test? How do you alert me that, hey, you might be carrying this trait? We need to get you tested.
Right. What we have is one of the most powerful back engines. Remember, CVS is a commercial enterprise, and they know how to drive information.
Right.
So right now, there are 3 or 4 pilot programs going on in Connecticut where they are telling individuals, asking them about their status, the sickle cell trait status, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. But that has to be married with, and we're learning this from a new pediatric oncologist in Connecticut here at Yellow Haven Hospital. It's critical that we know that they understand that if you have sickle cell trait status, okay, you have to understand what that means.
What
And
does it
so
mean?
that exactly. And
Tell us what
so
it means.
what it really means is that if you uh, have a child with a mother who has sickle cell trait status, there's two people now. The
Right.
chances are that at least one of the four children that they have will have sickle cell disease, and two will have sickle cell trait, and another one, the fourth person there will be won't have anything relative to the disease or the trait. It's a 1-2-1-2-1. It's Mendelssohn. Remember the old stuff in your biology, Mendelssohn?
Right. So,
You know,
all right.
but
So you mentioned that here in Connecticut, we have like 45,000 people who potentially carry the trait.
yes,
So,
right,
so I know that we talked about CVS and them pushing that information and getting these people on board.
right.
So we have 45,000 potential. How many people do in Connecticut actually have the disease and are being treated for it?
We have 1,500 individuals who are in the hospitals on an annual basis.
Okay.
So we have 1,500. You have to remember that there are some individuals who are benign, who don't have any crisis, things of, it's a bell curve,
Right.
right? So only data we really have is the data that is from the acute care side of it when they're hospitalized. But the thing the thing that we're trying to do right now, Mr. Walker, James, JW, is that we've asked the state for significant resources so we can, in fact, do what Fauci did. What Fauci did is he introduced to the communities across the country, but in Connecticut, something called herd immunity, right? That's the vaccine.
Right.
What we want to be able to do is have education around that 45,000 individuals and move them up relative to their acumen, their understanding of the trait.
Okay.
So what we want to do is protect the herd. So we want to take that approach, epidemiological approach, to transfer that model, which was vaccine driven, to educational models.
I got you.
And therefore, for example, we want to be able to see how many of those individuals, 5,000, have an understanding of their sickle cell trait status. And then we want to be able to continually to improve that because the model has worked. We understand what the model means relative to Fauci. We want to get to that point because it's really, we don't want to wait. We cannot afford to wait for pharma and big pharma.
No,
We have to
because it's
take
pretty
this right
obvious.
now and what's in our hand. So we have the tools to be able to drive this down so that if there are 100, let's say hypothetically, there's 100 children born every year with sickle cell disease. We want to take that and tie it to the educational program. What resources are effective and efficient relative to changing and making sure that more and more or less and less per se, we want to be able to bend the curve for newborns born with sickle cell disease.
Let me ask you, how many and this sickle cell, as I told you before, has affected my family. My young nephew passed away due to sickle cell, and recently, one of my nieces was hospitalized with because she has sickle cell. How many people are we losing to this disease on an annual basis?
Um, the life expectancy is 43.
Wow.
And it's interesting you asked that question because if it's the males who are dying younger than the females.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes, it's because of athletics. It's because the males, and you know how this issue is with males and African American males and Latino males, they are not adherent to the what medications they're on. They have bad, poor lifestyles, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why, the athletics, machoism, slavery, all those things are coming. It's the Mandingo warrior syndrome.
Okay.
I'm not, I'm not weak because I'm strong. I'm healthy. You know, and
Wait
it's
a minute,
just
Jim. I
that
need you to
aspect
repeat.
of it.
I need you to repeat that last part again because you froze and we lost the
Okay,
audio. So, uh,
okay. In slavery, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, if you were sick, you were killed because you have no value to the plantation owner. Correct?
right.
We still have that in our bone marrow. We
I got
never
you.
admit as African American males that we're sick.
Yes, I know that's a major problem where that's in both physically and mentally. We just have a problem um, admitting that there's a problem that we should take care of. Now, you mentioned that you have an intern and that
Right.
she's doing a study. Exactly what is she doing?
My name is Krupa Hegde. I currently go to Yale University and I'm studying history of science there. I am working with Mr. Rawlings this summer to make a report to help detail the struggles that people with sickle cell disease go through from their entire life course. So we're starting with birth and then going all the way up until geriatric care involving sickle cell disease and detailing all the components that a student or child might go through when they're born and diagnosed with sickle cell disease. And so what
Okay.
that looks like.
I need you to kind of speak up a little bit because you're far back and we're losing your
Okay, yeah, let me
audio.
come a little closer that way.
Okay, please. Yeah, thanks. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So we're working on this report to detail everything that a person might go through once they've been diagnosed with sickle cell disease. So that includes childhood education struggles. We see a lot of our clients come into Michelle's house and detail that they're struggling academically in school, but also they're struggling with making friends and bullying due to their sickle cell disease and not being able to participate fully in things like PE or recess. And then from then we have children struggling with their transition of care from pediatric care to adult care providers, and that switch tends to be pretty difficult, and that continuity of care is not as seamless as we would like it to be. And then once they reach adulthood, we see a lot of struggles with job employment and getting accessibility needs met, with job prospects. Also, things like stigma and racism from doctors that they're experiencing,
Providers.
providers in general, yes.
All
And
right,
then
go ahead.
so we're trying to detail all of these in a report to help spread awareness of the fact that sickle cell disease is one of the diseases that people often underwrite, and one of the things that people often don't look at when they're thinking about becoming providers. But it's really a whole community of care that's needed in order to accurately support somebody with sickle cell disease.
Well, on behalf of all the people who have sickle cell and potentially carry the trait, we certainly thank you for your efforts on behalf of Michelle's house and Mr. Rollins here. So, Jim, now that when you get this report, what are you going to do with it?
Yes. We have 4 or 5 targeted individuals or groups. We have the legislative group in Hartford who are relatively unaware of sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait. So that's to inform them. And so what we're trying to do right now is that we have a bill for funding, but we have tested the waters and there's little understanding of what sickle cell disease is or sickle cell trait. What
Okay.
is going on right now is that so many sequelae of sickle cell disease, we're working with and we fail to work with the school systems. And now we know that the average student with sickle cell disease is admitted to the hospital 3 or 4 times a year. Okay. What does
Right.
that mean to them academically? All right. So the mastery exams, and you're familiar with the mastery exams, the average score in the state is 57. The average score in the 5 or 3 or 4 major urban areas is less than 10.
You've been listening to Real Talk, Real People. If you would like to be on the show, if you have an idea for the show, give us a call at 203-605-1859 or drop us an email at realtalkrealpeoplect@gmail.com. You folks have a good week, and we'll talk again next week.
Dead Windows, the new book by James Snowden Walker. Available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Google Books.